Hello, everybody! This is Sanrano Neko, waking up from my nap to greet the world for the day. And by greet, I mean finally watch Season 2 of the live-action adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender, and braced myself for impact because the clips I saw while working on my rewrite video did not inspire any confidence that it'll be any better than Season 1. And after wasting 7 hours of my life again, I was proven right when I saw how the writers not only didn't solve any of Season 1's issues, but created more problems instead. A few years have passed since the devastating siege of the Northern Water Tribe. Aang, Katara, and Sokka now travel across the Earth Kingdom, fighting against the Fire Nation while searching for an earthbending master for Aang. While escorting refugees from the fallen city of Omashu, the gang learns of the return of Sozin's Comet, the same comet the Fire Nation used to wipe out the air nomads. They then rush to warn of an impending attack on the Earth Kingdom's last remaining stronghold, Ba Sing Se, an impenetrable city whose walls hold a war of their own. Now normally I start my reviews with something positive, but there's nothing positive to talk about here. There were interesting ideas though, like how the story delves into Sokka's mourning of Yue, and explores the effects the siege of Ba Sing Se had on Iroh and the people of the Lower Ring. It also adds some interesting changes, like giving the Beifongs a connection to past avatars, and having Long Feng befriend Aang in order to manipulate him into believing the Dai Li are good while the Earth King is bad. However, all of these ideas fail because the follow-through on them fails. Sokka's mourning takes almost the entire season to resolve. Iroh's actions alter his character in ways that make him completely different from the uncle we know and love. The Beifong's avatar connection makes light of Toph's vulnerable moment where she asks if friendships can truly transcend lifetimes. And the friendship with Long Feng is literally only there to create a needlessly dramatic reason as to why Team Avatar parts ways before the finale. Even the production wasn't as good as Season 1. The CGI just felt like a showcase of how big the budget was. The bending looked more mainstream and artificial, with movements that were no longer unique to each element or grounded in martial arts. It just looked like movement for movement's sake. The fights were also underwhelming, unacrobatic, and unnecessarily dragged out for no reason. And even the overall look got downgraded as it seems the show caught the live-action remake allergy to color and good lighting, with its cool tones, dull colors, and numerous scenes happening in the dark of night. The only aspect of production that was actually decent was the costumes, which felt more worn and lived in. But the worst offenses were made to the story and characters. To put it lightly, the story is a goddamn mess. There were so many changes made that the plot is its own original thing at this point, with moments from the cartoon thrown in as the occasional reminder that yes, this is still an adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender. There was also no logic behind any of the changes made, and only proved how the writers don't understand what made the cartoon work. Like why have Aang destroy the abandoned hope sign for morale when the OG episode was about how he tried not to feel anything only to realize he can't stop feeling or give up hope? Why change Toph and Iroh's conversation from learning that it's not a weakness to let your loved ones help you to parents and kids need to communicate better? Why let Aang smack Azula around for a bit instead of letting her shoot him in the back before he can do anything? And the way they combine and cram together episodes is even worse than what was done in Season 1, because nothing makes sense plot progression-wise. It just happens because it needs to happen without any thought for the how and why. Aang needs to overcome his block for earthbending? Just start an argument with him. Zuko needs to have his inner conflict? He gets it after he just decides to not chase after Aang anymore. Azula needs to take over Ba Sing Se? She magically convinces Long Feng to ally with her and then kills a bunch of officials to prove her might. Appa needs to get stolen? The Dai Li decide to just yoink him because he's right there. And if you thought the exposition in Season 1 was excessive, Season 2 is even worse as it treats you like you're an idiot who will never understand anything unless it's spoon-fed to you. Everything is spelled out. Everything. It's all talk and no show. And even when they show, they still talk. In fact, it felt like everything was done through talking. Plot progression? Talking. Character development? Talking. Everything else? Talking. And when the talk is actually necessary, They botch it with weird progression where a character will explain something and then the other character will ask why they need to know that something. Like Iroh randomly explaining the philosophy of the 4 elements to Zuko, who has to ask why he's even telling him this just so Iroh can say it's to teach him how to bend lightning, instead of just starting with that. And speaking of lightning, the butchering they did to the lore is especially bloody this time. Lightning doesn't feel like a dangerously volatile and hard to control element anymore. Now it's just something Azula can throw around like it's magic, given how she can easily murder a room full of people and teleport away. And the emotional turmoil excuse only applies to Zuko, despite Azula also having as much emotional turmoil as he did. Also, remember the new Badger Mole lore where they made it so they can see by sensing emotions? They doubled down on that and ended up nerfing Toph in the process. And there might as well be no rules for the Avatar and Spirit World, because now the Avatar can bring anyone into the Spirit World without an issue. And anyone can interact with previous avatars without the current avatar as a proxy as long as they're in the Spirit World and close to the current avatar, because why not? And if you think all the changes made to the story were bad, they got nothing on the character assassinations that were committed. Aang is an angsty teenager who complains about how his friends don't understand the pressure of being the Avatar, and his love for Appa feels shallow because of how easily he's able to leave the Avatar state without help, as opposed to needing someone to stop him from destroying everything in his way. Katara is no longer a piece of cardboard, but in exchange for more personality, she has sass that feels mean-spirited at best, and her relationship with Aang is non-existent, as they replace any build-up for it with her own journey of wanting to be more useful by becoming the Painted Lady. Sokka is more comedic now, but his character journey is just a repeat of Season 1 that's recontextualized to center around Yue's death, and how it affects his relationship with Suki, which is still as awkward as ever. And as great of a casting as Toph was, her entire character had its edges sanded down. Like, yes, she's older, so she's better at playing the role of a noble, but when she's finally free, the only differences made are that she speaks informally and doesn't wear shoes. And what they did with her blindness is head-scratching and disrespectful. She can now read and write. She barely cracks any jokes. And her parents aren't as smothering with their protection and even get a legitimate reason as to why she shouldn't leave with the Avatar. The story is basically handling her disability with kid gloves, instead of confronting it head-on and showing how she embraces it as a strength, not a weakness, like in the cartoon. And they absolutely nerfed her earthbending. She's no longer a human lie detector. She can't sense Aang bending a pebble at her head. It took her more than a minute to defeat the boulder. And her invention of metal bending felt like a plot point that just needed to happen rather than something she earned. But what they did to Toph is nothing compared to what they did to other characters. I hate everything they did with Jet and how he ends in the same place as he began. Wishing death on the Fire Nation instead of realizing his need for vengeance is what led to his own destruction. I hate how Professor Zay is now an informant and snitch, instead of someone who loves knowledge so much he's willing to die surrounded by it. I hate how King Kuei is no longer a naive and deliberately sheltered ruler, but a negligent king who despises politics so much that he pawns the duties off to someone else. And I hate what was done to each member of the Fire Nation royal family who no longer resemble their cartoon counterparts. Azula is so insecure that she needs praise and reassurance from other characters in order to feel better about herself, and forces Ty Lee and May to kill each other just to prove their loyalty to her. She's no longer a genuine threat who's able to make an elite secret police force submit through words and sheer force of will, but a mean girl fashionista throwing a tantrum and taking it out on everyone, especially Zuko, whose entire character journey has been fundamentally altered in a nonsensical fashion. He now outright blames Iroh for everything that's gone wrong in his life because he didn't get over Liu Ten's death fast enough, and let Ozai become Fire Lord, which the details for how that happened are now changed but not explained. He stole from a pregnant lady, thus invalidating how he'd always choose to do good as long as there were no external influences. He knows Ozai is a bad person and says so out loud. His inner conflict doesn't feel like much of an inner conflict, because he decides to not capture the Avatar or go home when given the chance just because. And he only sides with Azula because he made a promise with their mom. And Iroh is even less like the uncle we know and love. He no longer helps Zuko change for the better because he's too busy going through his own redemption arc involving the siege of Ba Sing Se. And I hate everything about it because it basically means that after Lu Ten died, he didn't go on his spiritual journey, didn't meet the dragons, didn't find enlightenment, didn't realize the war was bad, and didn't create the White Lotus to unite the four nations and help end the war. And yeah, you heard that last part right. Iroh is no longer the Grand Lotus of the White Lotus. Now he's a regular member of a White Lotus created by Fire Nation asylum seekers in Ba Sing Se who are led by Zhang Zhang the Deserter of all people. And because of all these changes, the entire dynamic of the Fire Nation royal family is altered as well. Like, I honestly don't believe Zuko would care about what Iroh thinks of him, and Iroh treats Zuko more like a replacement for Lu Ten than another son. Ozai feels even more like an abusive tiger mom and less like an evil bad guy. He even straight up says he wants to fix their broken family. And Ursa loves and wants to protect both her kids, so Azula has no reason to still believe her mom thought of her as a monster. And these changes give rise to genuine concerns, because they invalidate so much of the OG story that I once again have a sinking feeling about what's to come for Season 3. Overall, Season 2 of the live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender gets an F. This entire season was the embodiment of missing the point, and the egotistical belief that original ideas are better than actually adapting the original story. It also lacks substance because everything was done through talking, whether it be plot progression, character development, and more. Conversations were needlessly extended. It took forever for a character to get to the point. And everything needed to be spelled out. Like what a character is, what a character should be, what a character's doing, what state a character is in, what a character needs. Everything is told and nothing is shown. And when something is shown, it is still being told. And if that's not bad enough, the story and characters are fundamentally altered to the point where Season 2 is just Avatar: The Last Airbender in name and appearance only. The changes didn't improve upon or provide worthwhile expansions of the story. Important scenes no longer have weight, nuance, or emotion. Iconic moments felt as if they were only there so the writers could go, see, we did the thing. Plot progression happened for the sake of plot progression. The chemistry amongst characters is non-existent, which is mind-boggling because the cast has amazing chemistry off-screen. And there were so many character assassinations that I'm surprised there weren't more bodies littering the floor. This entire season was just proof that these writers don't understand the original story or characters, nor do they care to. And I'm genuinely concerned for Season 3, because if Season 2 was any indication, they've turned the well-established world of Avatar: The Last Airbender into the Wild West where anything goes, and nothing is safe or sacred anymore. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Reminder that this is just my opinion, so you can take it with as many grains of salt as you want. I don't mind either way, and would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment which show you'd like me to get my 2 cents about next. Also, I'll be making a rewrite video where I'll present a better way to adapt Season 2 of the original cartoon, because this was definitely not the way to do it, and it hurts my soul just thinking about it. So please look forward to it as I hope to get it out before August. Anyways, this is Sanrano Neko, going off to do some rewriting now. Don't forget to keep calm and just meow.